Hi, friends. This week we're going to work on our fact fluency, but let's reflect on what we did last week. Last week was learning all about the why before the how.
So last week we used hands-on manipulatives that you created in your multiplication toolkit. Sometimes we don't have our hands-on toolkit, but we always have our hands. So we also learned about drawing pictures. So maybe we had a fact that was 3 groups of 5. You could quickly and easily draw 3 groups because the 3 is the factor that represents the groups or the rows, and 5 represents what's in the groups or in the rows. So we could see that 3 groups of 5 equal 15. Now, looking at the same visual model that we had, friends quickly discovered, wow, multiplication is just repeated addition. So, you learned that multiplication was just repeated addition. And you might say, well, I'm really good at repeated addition. Why don't I just do that? Well, as the numbers get larger, it becomes really time-consuming to skip count that high. So multiplication becomes a more efficient strategy. What does efficient mean? It really means faster and more accurate. What does accurate mean? It means you've got a better chance of having the correct answer. Since we realized we were doing repeated addition, a lot of friends discovered naturally that they started to skip count. 3, 6, 9, 12. Whoopsie, that looks more like a 15. Let me erase, and I'm going to try to put a 12 there. Now notice mistakes happen to everybody, and that's okay. It's also okay when we're first learning something new to make many mistakes. Mistakes are proof that we're learning a new concept. So when we first started skip counting, we started with a hundreds chart on Braining Camp. By the way, I love Braining Camp. Remember, you can go to it anytime you want to experience some fun activities with math. Remember, the username is Clinton and the password is math. But let's look here. Let's look at the hundredths chart. The 100 chart. I was doing decimals the other day. So we started by looking for patterns and counting by 3. 3, 6, 9. Can you count with me? And your brain should look at the numbers and the patterns. But we started skip counting with hundreds charts. Now let's look at how a 100 chart can help us. So look here, this is a blank one. Remember? Can you tell what we're practicing skip counting with? Notice, what do you think would be there? What do you think would be there? Can you tell what we're skip counting by? So how does this help us? Well, maybe we're doing 7 groups of 3. So we're going to count 7 groups. So this would be 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 6 groups, 7 groups. So let's use our skip counting to help us. Wait a minute. You guys are really good with 5s. So what do we know that 5 groups of 3 would be? We know right away it would be 15. So when we talk about our learning, our next step would start with a fact that we already know and skip count from there. So we're starting at 15. Now, what's 3 more? 3 more. Nice. So our answer is 21. Notice, sometimes we know a fact, but we're not sure about the next fact. So start with what you know. Let's try another one. Our hundredths chart right here. Good job. Can you tell what we're skip counting by on this chart? You're correct. 4s. So let's just do a quick review. I want you skip counting orally at home, but please look at the patterns. Great. Well done. Great. Let's try another one as our warm-up. So what if you have a fact like 9 groups of 4? That's a lot of skip counting. But we know what 10 groups of 4, right? Because we're really good with our 10s. What are 10 groups of 4? You're right. 10 groups are 40. So remember how I said earlier? Go with a fact you know really easily. So 40, and I know I'm taking away 4. You can go back, or you know that 10 minus 4 is 6. So I would have 36. So we're stretching our thinking with new learning, and we're anchoring to facts we know to help us be faster at facts that we're still learning. We also practice skip counting on our fingers. How many fingers do you see? You're right. You see 5 is here, so 6, 7, 8. You see 8 groups of 4. Now remember how I said you really know 5 4s quickly. So start with 5 4s and skip count up. 24, 28, 32. Great. So last week you skip counted all the fingers. Now we're starting with a fact we know and skip counting on. We also worked with number lines. Number lines are fantastic. It's a great visual model to help your understanding of equal groups. So let's do 6 groups of 3. Well, we know easily 5 groups of 3, right? So we can jump all the way over because we know that 5 groups of 3 is 15. So we just need to add one more group, which would make it 18. Great. So let's do 4 groups of 3. Well, you might be pretty speedy at doing 3 groups of 3. So 3 groups of 3 you already know are 9. So all you would have to do is add one more group of 3, which would make 12. Another strategy we worked on was a raise last week. This can also help you with your today's independent practice if you need it. You can use your dot paper from your multiplication toolkit. So let's look at this array. Let's figure out how many rows are in this array. 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, 5 rows. This has 5 rows. So 5 rows of what? Let's figure out how many columns we have. 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. And columns represent how many are in a row. So we have 5 rows of 4. And we know that 5 rows of 4 equal 20. And let's talk about our math words right now. We know that this here is a factor. Right here is a factor. And the answer to a multiplication problem is a product. So if you need to use your multiplication dot paper from your toolkit to help you with your IXL today, by all means, it's a great strategy. So let's look here. Let's look at the first problem that we have. We have 2 groups of 4. So we know the 2 represents the rows. So we're going to do 2 4s, 1 4, 2 4s, and then we can quickly see that equals 8. You would erase your board. Now we're going to do 3 rows of 2. 1 row of 2, 2 rows of 2, 3 rows of 2. 3 rows of 2 gets you a product or an answer of 6. Now we have 5 rows of 3. 1 row of, oops, that didn't look great, but oh well. Let's just erase it. One row of 3, 2 rows of 3, 3 rows of 3, 4 rows of 3, 5 rows of 3. So you would skip count. 3, 6, 9, 12. But remember, if you already knew 3 times 3, you could start right at the 9, 15. So another strategy that you can use with today's must-do or independent practice in IXL would be using the commutative property. We've been reading our multiplication facts usually from the left to the right, but the commutative property, thank you, with multiplication, you can actually read it both ways if you want. If you think about it, it's like traveling from Maplewood to New York City and then going back from New York City to Maplewood. It's the same commute. So it's going to be the same answer or the same product. So let's look here. This one originally is 5 rows of 3. So here's our 5 rows of 3. But we could also do the commutative practice of doing 3 rows of 5, just reading it in reverse. So that's something that you might do, especially if it has a 5 or a 10 or a 2 in it. We're usually very quick with those facts. So enjoy your independent practice today. Remember, we're using what we learned last week to become more fluent, which is a fancy word for saying faster, with our multiplication facts this week. So this week is really about using those strategies and helping us develop our fact fluency. Have a good time. Enjoy.